Greetings everybody and welcome back to the video. In this video, you are gonna learn how to ingest multiple tables into a Hudi transactional data lake using Hudi multi-table delta streamer. Yes, Hudi multi-table delta streamer. Often, you might want to ingest 10, 20, 30 tables into Hudi transactional data lake. Apache Hudi delta streamer or Hudi multi-table delta streamer provides you a way to ingest data into Hudi in a much faster and an easier way. In this video, we are going to learn how to use Apache Hudi multi-table delta streamer and ingest multiple table into a Hudi transactional data lake. In this video, we are going to take two sources, which is a sample CSV file, customer and order. The goal of the video is to utilize multi-table delta streamer, write all the config file, the prop file, and ingest data into Hudi transactional data lake in a much faster, easier approach. Without wasting any further time, let's get started with a demo. Just before we begin the hands-on lab, I just wanted to let you know that I'm also working on a return guide, which will contain all the necessary steps as well. So now, with that being said, let's jump into some action, right? So let's get started. So again, first step is we need the dataset. So first of all, clone the repository, and inside there you will see a folder called E3 or exercise 3, right? So go ahead and do that. So let me show you that. So as you can see over here, I have a folder called E3. Okay. So all the materials regarding this exercise is inside there. Okay. So make sure to download that. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to generate some sample data. So there's a folder called sample data and there's a file called datagen.py. What I want you to do is simply run the Python file. As you can see, I did that. Now this created two folders, customer and order, and inside order folder you have some data. This is a CSV file separated by tab character, right? Similarly, you have a customer CSV, right? Some data about the customers. So now we have two sources, right? You can have 3, 4, 10, 20, doesn't really matter. The process will be similar, okay? So now you have some fake data that we can play with, okay? Now what we need to do, the next step is, let me refer my notes. Now we have to create a folder called config folder. So in the same project directory, create a folder called config folder. Again, if you have cloned the project, this folder would probably exist with all these files. So, but just letting you know those steps, So we're going to create a folder called config folder, and we are going to follow this particular naming convention. This is given on Hudi's website. So we are going to create some files, right? We're going to create some config property file. And the way we would name these files is the database name underscore the table name underscore config.properties. Now, since we have two tables, that is customer and order, we need to create two files. Database name will be default. My table name is customer, and of course, so the file name would become default underscore customer underscore config.property. Similarly, we will make for the orders, so default underscore orders underscore config.properties. Okay, so we're gonna make these config file. Now, what is this config file? So inside each config file will there will be the settings for that appropriate Hudi table. So inside order config.properties will contain the Hudi settings for the order table. Inside customer config properties, there will be Hudi settings for the customer table. Hopefully this makes sense. All right, now let's take a look at one of them, right? So I'm gonna open this particular file. So I'll go over here, and I know it's a little bit tiny. I wish I could zoom in a little bit. So here, let me collapse this. Again, straightforward, right, guys? We have the record key, we define the primary key, we define the partition path, we define where do you want to read the data from, we define the dedupe key, which is a timestamp, right? So pretty straightforward. So the customer table contains the Hudi settings for the customer table, and similarly, just want to show the order table. Again, makes sense, right? It contains the Hudi settings for the order table. All right, so hopefully this part is clear, right? Now, we also need to create a common config file, right? So I'm going to show you that process. Inside the config folder, create a file called source.properties. You can name it common.properties, you can name it anything, but I usually prefer source.property. Okay. Now, inside this, what do we need to do? So observe, okay? So I'm going to spend some time here. Okay, hopefully you can see, right? So now observe hoodie dot delta streamer dot ingestion dot tables to be ingested. Now you would provide the name of the tables that you want to ingest separated by a comma. So here I am interested in ingesting orders and customers. So I gave two table names separated by comma. If you have 10, 20, 30, you can simply keep adding here, okay? Now, once you do that, you need to tell Delta Streamer where Delta Streamer can find its appropriate config file. Config file meaning, okay, where can Delta Streamer find the hoodie settings, right? You need to tell that, right? So we're gonna tell that. So here, hoodie.deltastreamer.ingestion.orders, whatever your table name is. So here I have orders, so that means orders over here. .config file, observe here, I'm gonna show you for one. User, Saumil Shah, idea project, and it's inside a config folder and that. So this run right here is the path to that config file. So Delta Streamer knows, okay, here is the config file which I need to load. So in this case, Delta Streamer will go and say, oh, okay, it's inside a config folder and I need to load this particular file. Does that make sense, right? Similarly, we do that for the customer, hoodie Delta Streamer. Let me collapse this a little bit. Hoodie Delta Streamer dot ingestion, the table name which is customer dot config file, and then provide the path for that config file. Your config file could be on a file system or it could be on S3. So simply put the path over there. Now, since for the demo, again, if you were doing Kafka, your Kafka configuration will go here. But since I'm doing CSV, I'm providing the settings for the CSV file. Both the CSV file is separated by a tab character. So I'm telling Hoodie that, hey, my CSV file is separated by /t. And I'm saying hoodie.deltastreamer.csv.headers to true. So I want to read the headers, right? Hopefully it made sense, right? So now coming back to my notes. Now we are gonna take a look at the Spark submit job. Okay. All right. Now let's spend some time over here. So we are almost there. Now let's learn how to use that. Now again, you can come to the website, Hoodie's website, and they have a guide as well. So I'm just showing you a video guide here. All right, so in order to use multiple table, right? So we are ingesting multiple tables using multi-table Delta Streamer. So you have to provide the class. Here we are saying org.apache.hoodie.utilities.deltastreamer.hoodie multi-table Delta Streamer. That's the class name, okay? Then you will provide in the package. Since I'm using Spark 3.4 and I'm using Hoodie 0.14.0. If you're using different Spark, this one right here will probably change. But if you're doing the demo with me with Spark 3.4, Hadoop 3.7, Java 11, this should just work fine. Okay. Master locally, executor 1 GB RAM, and this is the path to the jar file, right? So the jar file is inside the folder jar, and here you can see Hoodie utility -slim -bundle. That's the jar file, right? If you want to download the jar, the links are given in the exercise notebook. This is the Maven link. If you go to the link, a jar file will be downloaded on your computer. Okay, back to the explanation. So I want the multi-table Delta Streamer to run in an upsert mode. The table type, I want it to be copy on write. The dedupe key is gonna be timestamp attribute. All my source is CSV, so I'm using CSV DFS source. If you are using Parquet, you can use Parquet DFS source. So whatever source you are using, you gotta use the appropriate class, okay? In the first lab, we did the Parquet. The second lab was CSV, and the third lab, this one is multi-table Delta Streamer. All right, now the base path prefix. So this is the path where I want my Hoodie transactional data lake to be created. So I want my Hoodie to be created in the user Saumil Nitin Shah downloads, and then it will make a folder called customer, and then it will make a folder called orders. So target table, provide the name of the table separated by a comma, okay? And then pretty straightforward, you would provide the path to the config file and the prop file. Now, just refreshing your memory, what is a config file? Well, config file is basically a directory where Hoodie multi-table Delta Streamer can find the Hoodie settings for appropriate table. And what is a prop file? Well, prop file is a file where Hudi can find the common settings, right? That's the very easiest explanation I can give you. So hopefully made sense, right? Again, if you clone the project directory and if you follow the steps, I think you should be able to do this as well. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do, go to downloads. I don't have a folder. I have it, so I'm gonna delete that. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this. Let me open my terminal. Oops, I need to open my terminal. So I'll right click on E3, open in terminal, and if I can close this one, drag the terminal up. Okay, so I've pasted that command and I'm gonna simply hit enter now. So let's see if it works. So if I go to downloads, right now I do not have any folder. So now, my Hudi multi-table delta streamer is gonna ingest data from two sources, that is customer and orders. As you can see, we see a folder called default because that is what our database name was, right? Default. So now let's wait. Let's click here and see if we see some file. We do see a folder orders. So let's wait for the job to complete. I would really encourage you guys to try these labs out, right? That's the way you're gonna learn these things pretty well. And these things are widely used in industry, right? If you go to any company and they're using EMR, I'm 100% sure they would be using Hudi Delta Streamer for sure. Okay, so the job is complete. We go to default. Here you can see two folders, customer and order. Inside customer, I have partition by state. Each partition contains its appropriate Parquet file, and order table, again same thing, I partition by date, and here I see my Parquet file. So this example, what you have learned is, hey, if you have multiple tables or many sources that you want to ingest into Hudi, you can leverage the tool Hudi multi-table delta streamer, simply create these config file and a common config, and then just use the Hudi multi-table delta streamer to do all the ingestion. I hope this video was useful. There's a lot more to it. Basically, let's say you want to perform some transformation. It offers you SQL-based transformer. But again, I don't want to cover everything in one video. I'm going to go slow. So hopefully this video made sense. So the first part was basically I covered how to ingest Parquet data. Second part, I covered how to ingest CSV data source. And the third part, I showed you, okay, now if you have multiple sources, how you can leverage Hudi multi-table delta streamer to ingest data into Hudi in a much faster, easier way and a structured approach, right? Thank you so much for watching the video. The complete exercise files are on my GitHub section under E3, exercise 3. If you think I did a great job in explaining, please make sure to hit the like and please share the video with your coworkers and colleagues. With that being said, keep smiling, keep programming, and I'm gonna see you in the next exercise.